Another week, another episode of Kanode Knows, your favorite BMX best podcast in the freaking world of all time. It's the best. If you just keep saying it, it'll be true. Joey Cobbs is a photographer, BMX rider, videographer, and co-owner of Low Numbers. And I've been curious about Low Numbers since I first started seeing posts about it last year. They put out an edit, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" It's like pretty cool branding, but like, what is it? And then they sponsored that game of bike that Dennis Anderson did, and that was great. But yeah, what is it? They just recently did a contest in New York called Borough Breakers, which you might have seen on YouTube on Billy Perry's channel. If you haven't, probably go check that out. And it's slowly releasing over the course of the next 7 weeks. I think 3 are out right now, and 7 more will come out. And it was just an idea in a garage 5 months ago. I learned talking to Joey, so it's inspiring. You know, like behind every cool event or contest or something is just a guy who's like, I like this. We should do this. So that's Joey in this case. Him and Demarcus made this happen, and it's pretty cool to see the behind the scenes. So in this episode, you're going to learn what Low Numbers is, who it is, why it is, and then a little behind the scenes of how it comes together for an event like Borough Breakers. Joey's got a bunch of opinions. I liked it. It was fun to talk to him. It was a good way to start today. And yeah, I have a feeling you'll enjoy this episode. But as you'll kind of feel in this episode, this is not so much about Joey and his BMX career as much as I would love to have that be. So we're going to record another one in the near future and get some Joey stories on the record. But in the meantime, learn about Low Numbers. We cover a lot of topics in this, and yeah, you're gonna fucking love it. It's the best podcast ever, dude. Before we get into it, I want to say if you want to support me or this show, the best way to do that is go to shopmediocre.com and get yourself a t-shirt. That's probably the most direct way. Become a channel member on here if you want. We talk about Patreon in this episode, so I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. Would you support me if I started a Patreon? I'm not sure what I would be able to offer. I could do an episode once a month on that, just a secret episode or something. We could keep it just amongst us, very few. But that would be pretty cool to grow this into something that I can dedicate more time and effort into. We cover that in this episode. Whatever, dude. This is good, but I appreciate your guys' kind love and support, and you guys should also show that support and love for Low Numbers, considering it's run by two very good dudes who genuinely love BMX and want to see the coolest, bestest shit. Dude, I'm done talking. I got to go edit videos. So enjoy this one, and I'll see you next week. Joey Cobbs. Kanode Knows. Sounds great.
Cool.
What the hell is Low Numbers? Talk to me, Joe.
Low Numbers.
Call you Joe, first of all? Hold on.
I don't care. Joe, Joey.
Joseph?
I've had all the dumb nicknames too over the years. So
is your proper name Joseph?
Yes, legal.
My man, Joseph.
Joseph.
Cobbs.
Nobody calls me Joseph except family. So
yeah. Well, I consider you family, dog. Just kidding.
Yeah. You can call me Joseph if you want.
you can call me Robert.
Robert. What up, Robert?
Yeah. I always maintained that, like, when I got older, I thought it would be like by now that I would change back to being Robert and be like a businessman or something. But I'm just gonna be Bobby forever.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like, I had so many people tell me, like, oh, Joey is not like professional. When you get older, you'll want to be like Joe or Joseph.
Nah.
I'll tell people Joe if it's like a food or a coffee order, just like one syllable. They can't really mess it up. Joe. It's like, it's 2 sounds. Like, that's it, And so like that in itself is like, I'll just default to that when I'm ordering stuff. But
feels like playing, I don't know, pretend or something. I do the same. I'm Bob. Oh my God.
Yeah, Bob. I could see that too. Yeah, exactly. When I say that, people who I'm with always kind of like look at me sideways, and I'm like, it's just easier.
It's fucking thrilling, is what it is. Just kidding.
Yeah, it makes you feel like you're playing a role. That's funny.
Speaking of playing a role, what's your role with low numbers and what is this? Like, I've been seeing it, and I don't know if people listening, they've definitely been seeing it as well, but it was very
It's actually been
mysterious.
kind
What
of
the hell is
popping
it?
off, which is cool. Low numbers started off, I mean, it's Demarcus Paul and myself, and it really kind of, the thought, or the name low numbers really came out of this thought of like, oh wow, like, kind of how the internet sometimes can really like inflate the amount of reach and engagement you have, but yet we're not able to, this sounds bad, but it's like, we have this crazy reach, we reach so many people, but yet like you can't sell 50 bike parts, you know what I mean? And so it's like, oh, it looks like you have this level of engagement, but you try to convert that into some kind of like monetary value, and there's like nothing there, you know what I mean? And then it's like, or not, you know what I mean, just a lot less. And the internet in general, like I make this like analogy, like before the internet, like all the different hobbies and interests were like these little like lakes, right? Like little bodies of water, like these little ecosystems. And they were sometimes hard to find when you were getting into something. But if you found those right little lakes, like those little bodies of information, like say, if you got into BMX in the 90s, like if you found Ride and Dig and Props and you started watching those, within like 2 or 3 months, like you knew the sport. You knew the sport because you had like a pipe, like a direct access to like the sport, what was happening. Whereas now, like the internet, I kind of call it, it's like an ocean. Like everything is together, everything's just lumped in. And like everything's accessible because it's a big ocean, but you can't find shit in there. You can't find anything to really connect with. Like, yeah, you might find, Billy Perry's channel or Panza's channel, but then you're like in their little world and you don't know about like,
The other
Edmund
part of the lake
Rosa, or
within the
like
ocean.
these dudes who were around, 10, 15 years ago that made the sport what it is today. But there's no, even like, Ride BMX became but like there's no, or even Dig to that, Dig is the same entity, Dig has never changed, but it's like, it's just like, it's so hard to, find what Dig has done. Like if you pick up a print magazine, like, or Dig's issues, like they've done so many amazing things and like created this little culture that just didn't translate to the internet. And like it, as far as I'm concerned, it wasn't as concentrated as it was in the past. And so low numbers is kind of like, that's kind of where that came out of. It's like, hey, like we want the low numbers, but like the concentrated numbers, we want to get back to that, like to the value, to the core. Yeah. And so it's like, and establish those core memories, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of how you get these like lifers in BMX. Like for me, I always go back to like Primo would host these La Rev contests like in the late 90s, and they were like game changers for me, and like you got to go to these events. Like Skate Street was like 2 hours from my house, fill a carload of your best friends and go, and then you guys got to watch your heroes ride in person and like do tricks over you, you know what I mean? Like just because you're kind of like hidden in a ramp, and then all of a sudden like they're doing some transfer and it's over top of you, and it's like your dream tricks that you have only seen in videos, and it was like that shit gets burned into your memory. And I feel like BMX is more accessible now than it has ever been, but in a way it's harder to relate to than it's ever been.
It's like less special since it's so accessible. The feeling that you get when you find it isn't as crazy as it was when it was harder. Like if something's hard,
I feel like it's harder to find. Almost, it's harder to find. It's like all that stuff is cheaper now in a weird way. Like
harder to find like the core memory type of situation.
Yeah. It's like harder to find that, like that real value. Not value is the wrong word, but like like the real meat and potatoes of whatever.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
what
like for instance, like I picked up like an old Dig, and it was like an Alex Kennedy interview in the issue. And like they went to like wherever he was, it was either on a trip or like his hometown, but it's like they had all these like portraits of him, lifestyle shots of him mixed in with all this sick riding, and like the whole like art direction behind it, or the creative direction behind it, it like gave it a feel that like you just can't get now clicking on a YouTube video. Like it's just
Yeah.
not the same.
Or
You know,
scrolling through a carousel post on Instagram. But I mean,
I mean,
the argument is it's just a medium. Like that was dope shit and it was printed on paper, and then there is dope shit and you can find it on the internet. But
yeah, it's
the
just
rarity of it changes and it's less special, feels like. At least
well,
that's
it doesn't have as much of a shelf life as it used to.
yeah.
But it's
That's true.
still
Literally
there.
it's
Like
over the next day.
there's still awesome stuff happening. But we just kind of thought like, hey, I think there's a need to like try to do something, a little bit more for like the core side, but also trying to like properly show the core side to a wider audience also, like
Elaborate. What are your guys' plans? How does one do that? How do you show the core side, or how do you do good stuff for the core and then simultaneously share it with the people?
well, I mean, it's kind of like what we're doing with Borough Breakers, like so originally it was just an idea that Demarcus and I had, and it started off very slow, and we both have kids. And like at the time, neither one of my kids was in school, but the other one was at home still. So it's just like had very limited time. And so like me and him were like agreed to like, oh, let's just kind of take our time with it, and it'll grow when it has a chance to, you know what I mean? Like when, and then Dennis hit me up about doing the game of bike last year and like kind of, producing it in a way. And I said, I would do it, but let me do it under this brand name,
Moniker,
Low Numbers.
yeah.
Like, let me just kickstart this thing. And that's kind of how, low numbers sort of
no
took
lumbers. You almost said no lumbers.
Yeah, no lumbers. I know, my dyslexia kick it in.
That's fine.
And so
Dennis'
so
Game of
that
Bike,
kind of
yeah.
kickstarted everything, was the game of bike. And two, at the time, we Demarcus and I, we didn't really know exactly what Low Numbers was going to be, but we just know we wanted to do something. And we weren't so desperate that we're like, we need this to be something now. It was like, no, right. We kind of know we want to do something. We know there's room there to do something. We're just not totally sure what it's going to be yet. And then through that Dennis thing, it kind of became like producing events in a weird way. And like originally we wanted as much stuff to be offline as possible, just like, trying to like create those core memories, or trying to create opportunities for riders to go out and like engage with pro riders and vice versa, and shops and brands and everything like that offline, in person. But at the same time, like you got to start where you can start, you know what I mean? And like, and we don't, it's not like we're trying to discredit or not involve the internet, you know what I mean? It's not like we're just like strictly trying to be hard-headed and crazy about it. It's like, look, no, like internet is part of everyone's everyday life, but we know that those real connections, those real experiences, they don't happen online. They happen in real life. And so like, it's like, okay, let's use the internet as a tool, use it as like to try to get the word out there, but then not have everything be so dependent on it. And so like when the time comes, like hopefully, we want to do in-person events, like real events, and try to create those core memories. But at the time, at first it's like, hey, let's do what we can. We did the event with Dennis. It seemed like there was a ton of engagement and a demand for there to be that style of content, where it was like still competitive and still like good content and good riding, but also a little bit more dressed down, to where like the guys can banter and bullshit and talk shit with each other and laugh. And like, we're putting that in the edit as well. And we're showing the personality side as well. And we're showing the human side, in the sense that like, I don't think before the game of bike, people knew that Garrett doesn't do hang fives. You know what I mean? And like, he don't like to do hang fives, and that's not part of his. And what's funny is that like, he can absolutely do hang fives, but he never learned them, or he never like prioritized learning them, because he doesn't like how they look. He doesn't like the aesthetic of the trick. So he's like, nah, I don't do hang fives. And so like, then he never practiced them. And then that became a weakness, in that game. People knew like, oh yeah, you do not really mess with hang fives. So like, if I do any hang five tricks, like I have a good chance of getting a letter on Garrett,
Love that. I think that there's such a need for showing the human side and that type of content, like you're saying. Like, it's
totally.
I saw a graph the other day about like the amount of, well, it was something about like interacting face to face versus interacting on the phone, and just like it showed a graph from the 90s until today, and it's just like it goes down. Like you're in the world until, you know, the 2010s, and then it's just down. Like
Right.
nobody talks to each other and has FaceTime, so there is a huge need for that. And
Totally.
I've noticed that as well, as far as like content and what to watch. Like you can only watch so many just trick type of videos before it's like, all right, I'm moving on. But if you're
Well,
watching
and
something entertaining with the human side of it, that's huge.
Well, and it's, you know, it's hard to relate to the pro parts, to the
Yeah,
banger parts, you know,
for
like
real.
I'll be honest, like when I was younger, and started watching videos, the tricks were a lot more just like sessions, you know what I mean? Like they're just filming sessions. And like the very first video I got was nonstop to San Francisco. It was like a 2-hit video. And it was like, I don't even know, like sometime in the 90s. But my point is like they would film like a ramp session, and then all the sick tricks from the session would go in the video. And I would watch those videos as almost like a reference, like what can I learn next? Like what do I think? Oh, that trick looks like it's kind of in my wheelhouse, and like I would go learn it, you know. And so it was like these videos were really fun to watch these guys ride, but also they were kind of opening up your eyes to like potential tricks that you could try to learn. And you know, it was like kind of a roadmap to the next steps. Like these days, it is like, that's why I think you find these Groms doing crazy tricks, because they grow up watching these dudes do crazy stuff on the regular. But it's also not very relatable to most riders. And I think like a lot of kids struggle with like, oh damn, like they only do this crazy level of riding. And I
Yeah,
think when you see riders talk about like, oh, I don't like this, or oh man, I don't even do that, and you actually see them reacting to tricks and reacting to other riders riding, then you see like, oh wow, these guys are actually not
human.
robots, they're humans,
Yeah.
and they did learn this stuff. And it's so funny, you know, it's like there's like this common misconception. I don't know if you've ever like kind of ran into this, where like the average person thinks that like a pro is a pro because they're just naturally talented. And it's like, no. Pros are only pros because they ride and obsess more than anyone you know.
Yep.
And it's just from pure practice that they are pro. I mean, some guys have like natural ability and they are unbelievably like superhumanly good. But even
There's
a
no pros
Garrett
who don't
or
practice.
like a Garrett or a Dennis, like they're pros because they ride at their level, because they ride at that level pretty much every day. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like they normalize doing that crazy shit. And
Yep.
like, and you know, and so like I feel like Garrett and Dennis were like the first riders of that like current generation that perfected their hardest tricks rather than just hucking the hardest tricks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there
To
was
do
that
it,
whole
to be able to
generation
do it
where
at that
like,
level.
well, like consider like Matt Berenger, you know what I mean? Like Matt Berenger is probably the first person to like normalize the front flip, right? Or like
True.
somewhat normalized front flip, but he always hucked them. Like
Yeah.
they were always like, I don't know,
Maybe.
70-30 he'd pull it, or like, you know, 30% he'd pull it, 70% he wouldn't, you know, and so like it was exciting, but like Berenger never got like ultra dialed at the front flip. Whereas like, you know, like Dennis and Garrett, like they practiced their hardest tricks and they got dialed at like the scariest shit, you know, and like,
Yep.
and that was like that next generation that just became ultra good. And you know, what's interesting though is like those guys they still struggle with certain things, you know, and like, and so I think it's interesting with these videos that like it will kind of, yeah, it shows the human side. It just shows that these guys actually do, you know, have to put effort and thought into their riding. And if they don't, then you see it slack just like anyone else, you know?
For sure.
So,
So part of that is happening with Borough Breakers, which is a very cool concept.
yeah.
And Billy hosts the shit out of it. I love it.
Yeah, no, and that's, I mean, and Borough Breakers was really just an evolution from the Dennis event. You know, we wanted to do a game of bike with Dennis again, and we're planning to do that again, but he had some projects come up that he wanted to work on, and so we were like, okay, well, what else can we do for like the second half of 2024? And we were kind of playing with different formats, and that was the other thing too, is like this second event, we were like wanting to do something different from the game of bike. Like game of bike's like pretty well understood and is like a pretty tried and true tested format, you know? And so that was just like automatically exciting. You hear that KP and Garrett are going to go head to head. You're like, oh man, I got to tune in for that. And so there was like kind of built-in excitement and engagement with that. And the Borough Breaker event has been really cool. It's like a fresh concept, but then and to, working with Billy Perry has been awesome because he's total pro and like, knows the YouTube world really well. But then, the Borough Breaker, the format of this event is just different. And so it's a unique event, and it's kind of the first of its kind. There's been events that are similar for sure. And so, that has had its own challenges as far as
explain what the format is.
It's just a challenge, it's a challenge to get people to give it a try. It seems like everyone that's clicked on it has been really happy with it and like really enjoy watching them. But it's not been as much of a guaranteed watch as I thought it would be. Like
what I'm saying is, like, explain to me, like, I don't know what it is already. Tell me what is the format and how does it work? And
so basically it's like a freestyle BMX version of a rally race. And so you have checkpoints, and in this instance, there's a checkpoint in each of the 5 New York boroughs. So, you go like to the Bronx, and then Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Staten Island, and there's a specific street spot. I'll show you like this little pamphlet we made up. But oh shit! Oh, I just spilled my coffee. That's all.
No.
So like we have like these boroughs, like the locations, and then the challenges. And so then like we had like a list and address to like each one, and then a specific little challenge at each one that they have to complete before moving on to the next borough. And so the challenges would just be like, film a line on these 2 stair sets, but involve a switch trick somewhere in the mix. We try to give them a little bit of guidelines to kind of keep it interesting, but also we don't want everyone doing the same trick. We don't want to say, do a 180 bar spin and then do a tail whip. It's like, no, because you don't want to watch 10 dudes do the exact same trick,
Yeah.
So we wanted to leave it open. And then also, so that's basically the format. It's like a rally race where they go from borough to borough to complete a challenge at each spot. And the rider that has the shortest time at the end wins. And we built in like little scavenger hunt style time crunches along the way that are optional. So like, that's just another way for riders to go in as much or as little as they want to. And so like, it was really, it's funny. I mean, this is what's so awesome about BMX in general. It's like you can just have an idea that literally started in this garage, like probably no more than 4 months ago, and like, here we are. It's like, we've got the best riders in the world. I mean, we wrote a pretty big check in the sense that like, we were like, oh, we're going to do pro purse 20 grand, like, which is like, that might bite us in the ass in the end as far as like financially, but at the same time, we're trying to start a precedent, and like try to start these events where like riders and filmers are getting paid, and we're not relying on frame brands, bike brands to pay for these events, because like it's a challenge enough for them to sell product, keep the doors open, keep the lights on, and pay for their team, and just feel like BMX, like the past few years, has fallen into this weird little rut where like we're either waiting for bike brands to host an event or a corporation, like Do Tour or X Games, and like, I love X Games. Like, X Games been around since I was a kid, but like, I'm gonna be honest, this might piss people off. I love X Games, don't get me wrong, but like, X Games at this point is like a glorified TV show.
This is a Grok generated ad for Dance Comp. Hey BMX freaks, you think you've seen the best deals? Think again, you crazy bastards. Dance Comp is dropping a code so hot it'll make your wallet do a backflip. Cha-ching. Slap in Kanode at checkout and watch your savings skyrocket. It's like finding the key to the ultimate piggy bank, you lucky dogs. Every click on Dance Comp is your ticket to BMX glory. You could be riding the latest and greatest, or you could be cruising on last year's leftovers, you poured sod. Sod. So hit up Dance Comp for gear that's tight. Use Kanode as a code and get 15% off and you'll shine so bright. Dance Comp, where savings are real and your ride's gonna make everyone kneel. You savvy mother... Wow, it's cussing at me. All right, that's the ad. Go to dancecomp.com and use code Kanode. Welcome to Phoenix, where the sun blazes and the bikes, well, they ride like they're on fire. You're cruising down 43rd Avenue thinking, I need a bike shop that's as rad as my tricks. Look no further than Unity Ride Shop, where bikes don't just ride, they party. At Unity Ride Shop off of Bethany Home and 43rd Avenue, we're not just selling bikes, we're sponsoring the local legends who make BMX look easy. Got a flat? We've got you. Need a new frame? We've got the hookup. Want to join a community that eats, sleeps, and breathes BMX and biking? You've found your crew. We're so active in the bike scene, our tires are made from the rubber of community spirit. Unity Ride Shop, where your bike isn't just a ride, it's your ticket to the coolest club in town. Drop by, say hi, and let's make some wheelie good memories. Unity Ride Shop, because every ride should feel like you're part of something bigger. See you on 43rd Ave in Bethany Home at Unity Ride Shop, where the bikes are hot and the scene's even hotter. Okay, good. That's a good ad. Welcome to burnslow.co, where BMX legends don't just ride, they redefine cool. We're not just clothing, we're an attitude. Jackets tougher than wearing an attitude is ridiculous. Jackets tougher than your dad's leather, and shirts so exclusive they're practically a second skin for your swagger. Our media, it's like if Tarantino made a BMX movie but with less feet and more style. Think of it as the soundtrack to your most epic bike ride, making your neighbors think you're running an underground bike club. Sounds of BMX bike jumping. So, if you want to dress like you've been knighted by the BMX gods or watch content that screams legend, hit up burnslow.co, because why just ride when you can rain? And end with a cool bike bell ring and a fading echo of burnslow.co. All right, thanks. Back to the show.
And so, like, that's all it is. It's not a competition. It's a TV show. It's a reality TV show. The guys who get the invites, you guys have earned them. Like, I'm not trying to take credit away from like the accomplishment of X Games, but like there'll be guys who medal one year and then don't get an invite back the next year. And the people who did get invites have never even competed in X Games, you know? So there's literally no rhyme or reason. There's no qualification process. It's an arbitrary decision with some people who face
an example
in a closed room. What's that?
Who medaled and then didn't get invited?
I don't want to like you. Well, like I know Colin was bummed that he didn't get an invite back. You know what I mean? And like Colin
fucking he hopped rincon, dude.
I mean, come on, man. If that don't
man.
If that don't earn you an invite, I don't know what does.
I know.
You know
Indefinite invites. Like you're invited to the rest of them forever. That shit was so sick, dude.
At least an alternate, nothing. And to me, and like, or like take like Chad. Like Chad didn't win his last year that he got invite, but then he's been competing for like 10 years. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, and medaling along the way. So like not getting dusted, not making a final or like, no, he's podium contender every single time. And then all of a sudden he just no more invites.
That's
and
so
like,
wild. Yeah. That's
weird.
and
then to someone like Chad, like fuck, like that could be a major impact into his
financial
life. his value as a rider. You know, because he was getting these invites to X Games and X Games Japan. And then all of a sudden, without warning, you're just not getting those invites anymore. And now what does somebody like that do? Like, are you able to get back into that? And how? There's really no rhyme or reason. There's no published process. Like it used to be, I don't know if you're around this long, but like when I was a kid, you know, Hoffman, they had CFBs. CFB could qualify you for a B3 event. B3 event could qualify you for X Games. There was like a way to get in there.
Now, huh? Yeah.
What's that?
There's none of that now. Like
none of that. None of that. And let me tell you too, like that process back in the day, like the first time I ever saw Seth Kimbrough ride was he was an amateur in a B3 contest, and he was getting magazine coverage because he was sick. And then he's got and Hoffman was the organizers. The Hoffman Sports Association, I'm pretty sure, was the organizers for all of that, for those series. He got on Hoffman. He got on Target. He became a big brand name rider. And then what did he do? He brought up Corey Martinez. Corey Martinez got clips in his props interview. Corey Martinez became a household name. What did Corey Martinez do? Corey Martinez brought up Nathan Williams. Nathan Williams became a household name. And so one rider leads to the next rider, leads to the next rider. Now, I'm not saying that Corey or Nathan would have not gotten coverage without the help of Seth Kimbrough, but you can see how one thing leads to a next, But because now X Games is bought and sold by corporations, literally bought and sold by corporations. It's just
the incentive structure changed. Like
it's a spread. It's a line on a spreadsheet. It's an investment line on a spreadsheet. X Games, and there's probably a value next to it. You know what I mean? And it's bought and sold, and that's what it is. And
that's so interesting to think about. And it comes back to just what is missing and the feeling of that. So like low numbers. And while you're saying all that, I'm like, I never really thought about that with X Games being a glorified TV show, but I think I agree, especially considering
it is.
There is no structure to get there.
Totally. Well, and to their credit, I'm not like trying to bash X Games, but like X Games is not a USA BMX. They're not a UCI cycling. They're not a governing body that has a prolonged interest in our sport, in the integrity of our sport, and who's qualified for what or who placed what. They will give shine time to Garrett for being the most medals, but because that's something that they could do to try to get headlines.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And try to become relevant when Olympics is popping off. You know, that you could see it all day. Like, oh, the Olympics is happening. And then it's like, oh, Garrett Reynolds, like most Olympic medals. But they won't even count all of his Olympic medals. We've talked about it. It's been taught. Is it 16? Is it 18? Is it 20?
Yeah.
What is it? Like X Games
27.
doesn't even know because they had like X Games in different places that they recognize or don't recognize. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they like franchised out for a couple different contests or whatever.
And
it makes me want to throw contests, bro. Like, let's.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, like, that's what I'm saying is like, look at like to me, oh man, like if you get me going down this rabbit hole, it goes deeper than this too. Like, I think BMX competition is ruined right now. I think it's ruined. There's nothing. X Games is a glorified TV. I'm about to go down the list. X Games is a glorified TV show. BMX Park, FIS, or the Olympics, they've ruined BMX Park. In the sense that like there was a time where you would get penalized if your runs were too similar. And then there was this weird time where judging there was like this weird one-up rule that became prolific in park. And you know what that is? You know what the concept is with that?
You have to do better than your last run? What's
the concept is like if I did a run, whatever that run is, and I got 89 was my score. And then I do the exact same run to a T and put a truck driver or a 3-whip at the end or a flare, whatever variation at the end. You have to give me a better score than 89 because I did my run, my 89 score plus the
How do you feel about the one-up rule?
I feel like you should be deducted 25%.
Nice. Let's go.
You should be deducted. If your run is 50% the same as your first run, you deducted 25%. Also, if you do the same trick more than like 25% of your run, 25% deduction. So if it's all tail whips, deduction. If you do a trick that isn't fully extended, tuck no handle like this, or a fucking look, that's a look down.
Yeah.
20% deduction. Don't give us a trick if you're not going to do it proper.
Yeah.
Don't give us a trick if you don't do it proper. If it's not locked out, 20% deduction. We know the difference between a proper tuck and a little gimpy tuck. You know what I mean? And like if you're giving a podium to somebody who did a gimpy tuck, I lose respect for you because like in a session you would film that again. Or like if you're filming, you're not going to let a gimpy tuck into the video. Like, yo, you got to do that proper. So how are you going to get podium like that? And that's how we.
Why do you think it went?
I don't know where that came in. I don't know where that came in. Like a lot of times, you know, in an event, the judges and the organizers will meet with the riders and they will establish the rules and they are established like how they are going to judge it. And I imagine in one of those meetings, it came up and that's how they ruled it. And it's ruined it for me. Like it's completely ruined it. It's ruined it to where it's like, now you guys are just robots and there's no grinds. Like you guys are going to take pegs out. Like, yo, what? Like, what are we even talking about? Like now there's no sub boxes. There's no nothing. It's a glorified dirt jump contest. And it's like, oh man, even dirt jump contests, like it breaks my heart that like nowadays Toyota Triple Crown is the only dirt jump contest. And it's like a sideshow to motocross. And if you start looking at like Nora Cup nominees for trail riders, it's the most underground names you've ever heard. None of these guys compete. None of these guys are probably even sponsored. But their Nora Cup #1 rider award.
Yeah. They're
Number
fucking
one
incredible.
rider award is what Nora stands for.
Riders
And these guys don't even compete. Like dirt jump competition is so broken that there's no and get this. And you know why? Like
why?
Because BMX was too hardcore, meaning for its own good. And what I mean by that is like you have to look at like the logistics of a dirt jump comp, you know, like Do Tour would do dirt jump comp in the middle of San Francisco, right? It was the craziest location ever. It was like a 6-pack or a 10-pack or whatever it was, but it was all dirt. You know what I mean? And like, and BMX is so core that we're like, it's gotta be dirt. And you know, the conversation came up where it's like, can we just build a wooden lip and a dirt landing? Is that okay? No, you can't. It's gotta be dirt or it's whack. It's lame. Like, it's bullshit. And then you know what happened? They go, all right, no worries. Yeah, it's cool. And then what are the biggest event of the year? Like, what's the biggest bike event of the year? It's Crankworks. It's Crankworks. And like, Crankworks is fucking dirt jumping. And like, and they took the name too, you know, mountain. And this is the thing. Like, BMX should own mountain bike dirt jump. We should own that. We should have been the pioneers of that sport, and we should have owned it, not been too cool for it. Like, we were too cool. Like, you guys are, and I don't know, like, the moment that it happened, but clearly at a certain point, you know, like, mountain bike dirt jump became the thing, and BMX dirt jump completely faded in the shadows. Even though BMX dirt jump, we know that is like trail riding is what started that type of mountain bike riding.
Actually, that's really interesting to think about, because like, if you think back to the origins of mountain bike dirt jumping and what that is, it totally started from BMX. Like, it's not
absolutely. I mean,
right?
like, the
like
Northwest
BMX dirt jumping came first, and then mountain bikes. Like, all of a sudden, mountain biking in general is way more popular than BMX, and it's just interesting. Like, we maybe did miss a boat there. You might
really
have
though. I do think we did.
Yeah,
I do think we did. Like, I think BMX sometimes, you know, everyone in the sport. I mean, we love BMX because it is so core, you know what I mean? Or it's like, so like, we idolize the things that we think are sick, and we kind of like, you know, squash the things that we think are lame. And that is really cool. But at the same time, I do think that there's been times where it's like that old Dave Chappelle skit, you know, where it's like, when keeping it real goes wrong, you know, and it's like, we just kept it real to a point where companies just stopped calling, and then they wanted to host events, or like, you know, I bet you I would put, you know, I'm not going to pretend like I know everything that happened or that I had a front row seat, but I would venture a guess that like in the 2000s, lots of mountain bike companies tried to reach out to BMXers or trail guys or whatever. Like, they just were trying to get involved. Like Trek, I'm sure, you know, Trek, what they sponsor, like Freddie Chulo back in the day. Like, you know, these mountain bike companies were trying to get in there and trying to figure out a way to get into BMX. And BMX was always like, nah, get out of here. You guys are corny.
Yeah,
and they were like, in the 90s, they were, dude. But mountain bike did become sick at a certain point, and BMX wouldn't fuck with it. And then
that's so weird.
And then they kind of took their ball and they went and they left. And then they blew up into this huge thing that is like a juggernaut. These events, like, if you look at like how many people are watching Crankworks at Whistler, it's insane. Yeah. It's like a fucking Super Bowl, you know? Yeah. And all of those guys idolized trail riders, you know, BMX trail guys, like, you know.
Yeah, you bet most of them know, like, if you're a mountain bike dirt jumper, you know BMX dirt jump legends. Like, it's just,
when Nyquist got into that world, they were hyped on him, you know. Yeah. And Nyquist just came in like real humble and had a real good head on his shoulders and was really respectful of everyone there, and like, and they loved him, you know. And like, and I don't think he podiumed, but I think he got top 10 a couple times, you know. And like,
dude, quick squirrel thought. Did you see that Nyquist stepped down from USA?
I texted him. I hit him up about it. Yeah.
Do you know what happened? What's going on with that?
Well, I mean, I don't want to speak to his thing, you know, like, but I think they had plans that he just wasn't totally on board with, and then they just they moved on. Is kind of what happened. Dude. So like, I don't know like really what he wants to put out there, so I don't want to like put out his business, you know what I mean? But like, essentially, like, they just they had like some plans that his plans didn't really sync up with, and then they just parted ways. In my opinion, it's super short-sighted. What's that?
I should ask him.
Oh, you should. I bet you could. Come on. You know, now he brought back Fart Fridays like immediately, and all this. It just goes to show they were like, man, that it almost bumped me out. Like, to think that they had I wonder if they had a conversation like, hey, maybe chill out on the Fart Fridays. Like, really, guys?
For sure, yeah.
We take ourselves that seriously. We can't have Coach can't have Fart Fridays, man. Like,
excuse me, sir. This is the Olympics. There's a lot of money involved here. You know, I didn't think about, but learning from Chad about the reason that pump tracks have been built by every city everywhere lately is because of the Olympics. And I was like, damn, the Olympics has like a massive impact. Anyway,
totally. I mean, Olympics overall is a positive thing. I don't think Olympics is a bad thing, but I think sometimes the people who are running it, or like, I don't know, like
There's
just, I
always
think
going to
there's
be
some
like
things that
room
are
for improvement.
disappointing to me.
Yeah.
That like, I just feel like, man, you guys have an opportunity here to do something the right way, and you're clearly letting your corporate greed and your corporate interest taking it a different way. What I mean by that is like feasts. Like, I have no beef with feasts or like the qualification events except for the fact that they'll be held in Dubai. It's like, is there a strong BMX scene in Dubai, dude, that we don't know about? Or like, or fucking
Actually,
Saudi
dude,
Arabia. They love BMX in Saudi Arabia, or do they love BMX in Australia? Why is there not a fucking huge feast event in Australia?
That's a good point. I wonder why. Yeah.
Oh, I know why. Because who's got the money?
Yeah, Dubai's got money for sure.
Who's got the money that they're just willing to burn? And who's like, you know, and like,
it's like a grant type of situation where the government's like, yeah, well, we need to spend this much on this, so go ahead, BMX contest. That sounds cool.
I think the Middle East, and I'm kind of talking out of my ass, but I think, you know, like there's so much like, what's the right word? Like just so much drama, or like so much like,
geopolitical
strife?
strife.
Just politics, or just there's just so much. It's just such like a hot button topic that I think those countries are probably looking for ways to be normalized and just to like enter in the conversation in a normal way. That's like why you have like Live Golf, you know, and that's all sponsored by Saudi Arabia and stuff. And it's like, they're just trying to, I think they're trying to like enter into everyday conversation and like the normal everyday life with that's not, you know, oil war or like some crazy shit.
Yeah. Maybe we could be known for something else. Like,
right.
And positive things.
You know, and to that point, if I thought they were bringing BMX to Dubai or like something like that, then yeah, I think I would be maybe a little bit more receptive, but they're not. And it's like, at least China is like, you know, those were some of the crazy far flung locations, but at least you see China, dude, they have riders.
Yeah.
China is, you know, the sport is blooming in China. You know what that means for us, I don't know. Like they probably have their own bike brands and stuff, but it's like, at least you see people in that country picking up a bike and riding, you know, and like starting to do stuff.
We're all so connected that it's not so much like if there's BMX going in China, it does affect us because of the internet and because of everything being connected. So like in general, it'll help grow it. But it's funny, while I'm listening to you, I'm like, dude, I love how opinionated you are. It's amazing. Where are you from? Like I have a real New York vibe from you, but I feel like you were just from Cali.
Yeah, no, I'm just from California. I kind of like had like a weird speech thing when I was a kid, and it affected my R's. Like I was like tongue tied as a kid. And so then like I had like a weird R affect, and then it like affected the way I talk.
Accent, dude.
A lot of people would think I was from New York. And like when I go, like when I was in California, they were like trying to give me speech classes all the time. And then I go to New York, like my dad lived in New York. I'd go to New York. They're like, no, you sound normal. And then I was like, I like it out here because like nobody's like struggling to hear me. Like whereas in California, people are like,
you watched a lot of Sopranos as a kid or some shit.
Yeah, for me it would probably be like more like Goodfellas, but same. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I don't even know if Sopranos is New York. I think that's probably
it's Jersey.
Right?
It's still, I mean, it's still the same zone.
They're all the same to me.
I mean, they'll be offended that I say it's the same zone, but you know, it's like it's similar across.
So let's go back to the contest real quick because I think that's an interesting topic, and I'm curious what you think the cure for what ails us could be. Like, what if you know, I grant you godlike powers to change the BMX contest scene. What does it look like now?
Kind of like what we're doing with low numbers, to be honest with you. Just taking a bit more power back, or like a bit more influence back into the sport that isn't so dependent on frame brands or part brands or soft good brands to propagate. You know what I mean? Or I don't know if that's the right word, but you know what I mean? It's like, you know, I think the sport just needs its own, like, sort of unbiased is a loaded word, but you know, it just needs its own sort of media outlet that is just focused on just trying to keep it creative in a weird way. You know, like I think Dig and Our BMX, like they're out there in their media outlets, but it's like they're kind of covering what's happening. They're not so much trying to like do their own thing, you know? And so like they're sort of covering the events that are taking place, and they definitely sponsor their own fair share of things. But ultimately, I just think the sport needs to have more events and more things happening in it that aren't so dependent on the bike brands to fund it, or
Yeah.
some detached corporate interest to fund it.
Right.
That one year they're into it, the next year they're not. You know,
I think a lot of good can come from it being a catalyst that is small enough right now to not be driven by the larger incentives that are almost like inevitable. If like you
Right.
started your own type of X Games right now, it'd be sick and core. And then once it finds a lot of success, then just by like definition, you're going to have bottom line interest and it's going to lose some of the coolness. So I feel like it's an infinite cycle, and like hopefully I wish you so much success with Low Numbers that you guys eventually get to the point where there's another crew like, Low Numbers is blowing it on this, we got to do this type of thing.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, yeah, like you get to a certain point. And I mean, you know, like you're going to get hit up by corporate interests, or you're going to get like some kind of sponsorship backing, and it's going to come with like some strings attached, or, you know what I mean? Like that kind of a thing. But I think, you know, when it starts from within the sport, like Low Numbers has, then you're able to work with those corporate interests and still keep the main focus in mind. And when you are the one that has brought the experience to the table, then you're the one that, you know, you set the terms, you know, and like, they have terms if they're giving you sponsorship dollars, but it's like, you're all at the negotiation table and you know what the hot button topics are, and you know where the line is, and what you don't want to cross and what you do want to cross. And so, you know, like, I think having that perspective when dealing with those bigger entities is what's important, you know, like
facts. Yeah.
I hate to point at skateboarding just because it's so common, but at the same time, I'm not scared of it because they are very similar to our sport. You know, it's probably the closest thing to BMX is like, as far as like being able to draw similarities. So if you want to do that in skateboarding, it's like you have Thrasher, who is always hosting things. They cover a lot, but they're hosting a lot too. And they have all kinds of random ideas that keep it fresh. And then you have things that like Street League, you know, like Street League, it's like a huge corporate shit with big money, but they did it their way. And what they did is they packaged street skating, and they created a format where they could take it to arenas and people could watch in real life. You know what I mean? And I think like you see those huge crowds cheering, going nuts, you know, and like for Nija or whoever it is. And it's like, that's the value. And they see these.
I want that for BMX.
Right. We want that for BMX. Yes. You need a street league that is like BMX only. We're not a sideshow. We're not given the shitty time slot. It's like, no, we are the event. We are the time slot. Like,
do you think we could fill an arena for street BMX? No, it couldn't just be street. I don't think it could be
able to. You have to be able to have everyday people relate to it in some way. You know what I mean? And I think there's there's so much that is relatable, but I just think, you know, we have become hyper focused on like pro parts and team trips. You know what I mean? And like that stuff is hard to relate to. You know, it's hard for the average person. Like even like Matthias once told me, he's like, look, like he's like, and he's flatland, you know, like, but he, you know, sometimes he's like, look, I do things that I know in certain situations, I do things that are visually appealing. Maybe not the hardest thing, but visually appealing. He's like, look, like I ride BMX. I love BMX. I rode BMX my whole life. This is Matthias speaking. He's like, I will see street stuff. I don't know what the fuck is going on. You know what I mean? And likewise, like Colin Veranak would ask me like, yo, did you see this clip? And I'd be like, yeah, dude, that shit was sick. He's like, did you see a switch foot? And I'm like, what? He's like, yo, it was switch foot. You didn't know it was switch foot? And I'm like, I don't know what your stance is, bro. Like, I don't know what foot you ride forward. And he's like, how could you not know? And I'm like, dude, that's just way too much nuance, you know, like it's way too much nuance. Like you can tell a switch bar because it's got a little extra dip to it or something. It's got a little swivel and you could see that you can tell, oh, it's switch, or like the tail whip.
You still need a trained eye, dude. Like
exactly. You still like, if you're the average person, you don't know, you know?
Yeah, and so then it's like tail whip, bro. But it's like, bro, that was switched. Yeah, exactly. I know what you're saying.
So they need something to relate to. I mean, like, you know, people watch football or people watch MMA. They don't know every single nuance that they're seeing, but they attach themselves to some, you know, either the drama of it or, you know, the season, you know, whatever. There's some attachment to it that they that they follow because of, you know. And the same thing can happen in BMX. It's just, what's that?
It's the competitive aspect, I think, that drives a lot of the, typical like UFC or sports or whatever. Like you don't know all the moves, but you're like rooting for somebody. And so you
Right.
could tap into that similarly. But your point, what you're saying is like what Matthias was saying is very interesting, because it's like to appeal to the most amount of people, you don't necessarily need to do a like crazy, intricate, nuanced thing. You just want to do stuff that is visually appealing. Like
Or relatable.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like that's kind of where with low numbers, it's like we're not like I'm not trying to just figure out a way to make street riding and BMX, like the core side of BMX, just a little bit more accessible while still being truthful to what it is. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I think it's funny because people who are like in the sport, it's like we just don't get it why people who are out of the sport like don't see what we see. You know what I mean? Or like why isn't BMX so much bigger than it is? And it's like it is hard to translate whatever that special thing is to people who aren't there in seeing it in first person. You
You want to
know?
know what I think on that? I think that the learning curve is so steep to get like comfortable BMX street, like even just like to the point where you can manual and you
Yeah.
can 180 on flat. Like it takes so fucking much to get there versus something like, I mean, skateboarding is pretty fucking hard to learn too, but like I think about scooters and I think about fingerboards and how those are blowing up, and it's just like the barrier to entry is like really low. So I think that's one reason why BMX isn't as mainstream as it could be.
It
But let me,
is. I think it's sort of telling the story too. You know what I mean? Whereas like
yeah,
for instance, rock climbing, like you could like people follow Alex Honnold. People aren't trying to free solo shit. Nobody's going to learn how to do that.
yeah, true, huh?
Nobody even wants to
Yeah,
learn how
that's
to
an
do
interesting
that.
point.
They're just watching him do that. But they bring the viewer along for the story. Like the
Yeah,
story is the product,
that makes
not
me think of Nigel. Like, who I was just gonna ask you, like, who's doing it well, telling the story within BMX, especially with their own.
Nigel is more to me on the commercial side. Like to me, it's funny because Nigel pisses people off because he like will call himself like a pro BMXer, which like if anybody is a pro BMXer, you call Nigel a pro BMXer. But
Fuck yeah,
I think today people struggle with they might struggle with Nigel calling himself that because he might not compete on a pro level or film on a pro level. But he did, like it might have been more 10 years ago or 15 years ago. But now I feel like Nigel's focus and effort is, it's either bringing BMX into new places it hasn't been before, like collaborating with a bank and talking to kids at schools about financial,
so sick.
yeah, like, financial awareness and all of that.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a whole new direction for the sport. And it's almost like, to me, Nigel's more of like a marketing genius or just somebody who's just bringing
Right, which is
BMX
what you said
into
with
different.
the story. Like if you think about what you said about like what's the piece that brings people in is the storytelling. And
Right.
so like Alex Honnold, people follow him even though they don't rock climb. Like Nigel has a story. Like a
Yeah.
perfect example is his grandma's driveway marketing thing that they just did. And it
Right.
is marketing, but I think he's a good example of like telling story. But
Totally.
I think
The
I
marketing for
totally
that
agree. There's
shoe was
more.
all the driveway. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
marketing for that shoe had nothing to do with like progressive riding.
Or a
It was
180
all
bar
to
or a
do
truck
with
or
like
whatever. Yeah.
where he came from and what he's
Exactly.
achieved. And like he came from his driveway, riding in his driveway or whatever. And so like,
Which is very cool.
but that's more of a marketing thing. You know what I mean? And like, so he's marketing Jordans. You know what I
Okay,
mean? And
so
he's bringing the BMX world, or he's bringing Jordan to the BMX world, or like,
right.
the
Well, let me ask you this then. What do you think is like, where does your brain go when you think of Alex Honnold and rock climbing? Who's our BMX version of people are following for the story?
I don't know that there is that yet. Like I think that's why I kind of think some of these events are cool in that way, is because it does bring sort of both elements together. It brings a little bit of that behind the scenes element, along with like showcasing their abilities as a rider. Like there's a competition aspect, but there's also a human aspect. I do
Who do you
think
has the most potential to tell a good story like Alex Honnold? Who would you like to see
it's
kind of lean
interesting.
into that? Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think that there has been strides to do stuff like that. I just don't know that anything is quite hit yet. you know, like I know
Like what?
there's the one guy who's doing like the Spoke project.
Project Spoke. Yeah,
Project
Justin
Spoke.
Schwenke. Yeah,
So it's like
he did a good job of telling stories.
there's, you know, he's definitely going down that road, you
Yeah,
know. Um, and so
which
I
you
think
gotta
there's
love
like
it.
a desire. I think there's a need for that, but I just don't think that anybody is really like hit a home run on how to capture it, you
He
know.
found some good ones. Like Behringer's story is a hell of a story.
Sure.
The ladies, that's a great story. I'm trying to remember all of them. Big Daddy's story is incredible. Like it's a good watch. You guys should go check out Project Spoke if you haven't
Yeah.
already.
Well, and that's it too. It's like when we have things like that in the sport, it's just like it's so important to try to drive traffic to it and like
Yeah, you
try
gotta support
to
it.
give it some legs so that they can keep going, you
Yeah.
know, and figure out like, yeah, how do you, and that's kind of the thing with low numbers right now is like we found this thing that we feel like there's a demand for. We think people really respond to this type of content, and now we're trying to get enough support to keep it going. You know, is it,
Yeah.
and I mean, is it a big corporate interest that like comes in and, you know, and I'll say like
Yeah.
when we did the
Brought
Dennis
to you by
bike,
Pfizer.
well, you know, it's funny. It's like, well, Demarcus and I were like riffing on like, oh, what would be so sick, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, dude, if you had like an airline sponsor, you know, like
Ooh, that'd be sick as fuck. Yeah.
there's a golf YouTube channel that's really popular, and the dude does like travel golf stuff, and he's sponsored by United. It's presented by United, and you're like,
Dope.
damn, like okay,
That's
now
fire.
you're cooking. You know what I mean? Like if
I want to
you
know. Tell me about. I'm sorry to abruptly,
no,
but I really want to ask, like the kind of the origins of this specific Borough Breakers. Like, what is it actually like when you're brainstorming that and you say, okay, I want a $20,000. Like, where the fuck did that come from? How are you funding it, and how did the conversations go in the beginning?
well, so it was kind of a it was like a situation of like checkpoints. Again, you know, I was talking about okay, the event is like checkpoints, but for planning it was kind of like checkpoints.
Okay.
Meaning the first thing was right behind my computer. Demarcus and I were standing here doing low number stuff, like filling out Patreon packages and stuff. And like, man, like Dennis had told us like, yeah, we were going to try to, I don't want to get in the weeds, but Dennis, you know, we put off the next game of bike with Dennis. And so we were trying to think like, man, what else could we do? We thought like, oh man, it would be cool to do something with Billy. Billy's got a really big channel. We could try, you know, like if we can try to bring in these elements of the sport that are really strong, maybe we can create something from within the sport that is like really valuable. You know what I mean? And so like,
I like that.
and so we kind of like, man, like what could we do that relates to Billy? You know, we don't want to just do a game of bike with Billy. That doesn't work, you know? And then like, and it's funny because like the original inception kind of had nothing to do with, or the original idea ended up having very little to do with like what came out of it. But like, we thought like, oh man, Billy's into cars. Like, what could we do? What's a cool car thing? Or like, is there a way, you know? And we're like, you know, there's like that gumball rally is like super popular. Like how do you do that? Like, what if we did something with Billy that was like gumball rally style? And then it was like, well, he's like New York. Like, what if we could do like a borough rally? And then it was like, well, what could that be? You know? And then it's like, and you just kind of try to piece it together. And then it was like, oh man, like what if we did, you know, like 10 riders seemed kind of good. So then it's like, okay, like five boroughs, 10 riders, 20 grand, you know, it was like this sort of thing happened. And then it was like
5, 10, 20.
Right. Yeah. It was like, oh, it sounded good. You know what I mean? And so then it was like, I was like, let me call Billy. I knew Billy from like volume days and I hadn't hit him up in a couple years. And so I was like, let me call Billy and just like float this to him. And like, and I can get on a rant and kind of start like, you know, hyping shit up and like, I could just snowball things. And so I was like calling him and talking to him about it. And he's like, fuck, dude, this sounds so sick. But he's like, if we can get 20 grand, that'd be cool. You know? And I was like, who knows if we could do that? And it was like, man, like, okay. So that first step was like, okay, Billy's on board. If we could do it, Billy's on board. And then it was like, okay, well, like we need to see if we can get a sick crew of riders. Like who could we get, you know? And so then once we were talking with Billy, then it was like, okay, let's get a list of riders going. And then it was like, quick, we got like 8 riders down who are like sick riders. And then it was like, fuck, like, okay. And we're like, okay, we're pretty sure we'll be able to get 10 riders total. We'll be able to find 2 more guys. So the next step was like, let's put a deck together and see if we could get sponsors, you know? And then it was like, And so that was like the next checkpoint. Like, is there
So
enough?
who put the deck together, and what did you use? This is weird to get into the weeds on that, but I'm very curious. Like, what did you use to make the deck?
I put the deck together, and I used InDesign.
Okay.
And
So
I've been doing decks like for
yeah.
riders and for different things. And I've just been like putting together a little event or a trip promo, not promos, wrong word, like proposals for when I worked at Haro, when I worked at Volume and Demo. You know, you put together ideas, and
valuable. Like, people don't think about proposals or making decks like what you're talking about, but this is what they teach you in business school. Like, if you're gonna
and what's funny is like you're right, and then it's like you make the deck, and it looked very similar to this. You know what I mean? Like, it had a lot of this, like all the fonts and all like the thick font with the thin font underneath. Like,
looks
all
like
of that we sort of ironed out in the deck to make the deck look polished, and like to have like low opacity images underneath, you know, with like this. Anyways, so the look got started in the deck, and then
so what was in the deck? Like, what
deck
did
was
you
like
show people?
Borough Breaker Rally, you know, 5 spots, 10 riders, 20 grand. Billy Perry, you know, hosted on Billy Perry BMX, 1.55 million subscribers. Like, and then it was you know, and then here's like the tiers of sponsorship we were trying to get. Here's like the projected views we were trying to get. Here's like the engagement we got from Dennis's game of bike. Like, you know, let's keep this ball rolling. And then, to be honest, like, and so that was like that checkpoint. And I was like, there was like one weekend where I was like, I texted Demarcus and Billy, and I'm like, yo, if we can't get anything popping this next week, I think we call it. And this is just an idea. And then that next week, we got every sponsor that we have on the list. Like, every one of these guys came through.
Who do we got?
Like, we got Rickson is the title sponsor.
Trojan Condoms. Just kidding. Troxus.
What's that?
Odyssey Sunday. I was just reading it, and at first I was like, Trojan? Odyssey Sunday, Kink, and Mezzarol. Sick, dude.
And and so those guys came through with enough of the money. So like we were able to raise enough of the money to be like, oh, we can do this. Like, we can pay the filmers and we can pay the riders. Well, like, the whole thing is too, we wanted everyone to get paid. Every single person that was involved in it. It was like nobody was doing anything for favors. Fuck that. Nobody pays bills off favors. Like, I've been in that situation my whole life, you know, like, and we were going to pay immediate, like pay at the event pretty much. Like, nobody's going to wait 6 months to get a check. Like, we're trying to resolve all the headache, heartburn issues that, you know, filmers, riders, and photographers deal with events. You know, it's like a lot of people don't realize, but it's like, oh yeah, we get paid $500 for the day, but then you don't get the check for 4 months, and you got to hit them up half a dozen times. And it's just like it's not even worth the $500 how much you have to reach out to them to get it. So it's like, you know, we were trying to be different from all of that.
Yeah.
And so like when we got the sponsors, we pretty much had enough money to pay all the riders their base fee. You know, like every rider was going to get a certain amount. And then if you podiumed, if you got top 3, you'd get extra money on top of that. But like 4th through 10th got a certain amount, you know? And so then it's like, everyone's going to get that certain amount. Then that's what that means. And then if you get 1st through 3rd, then you get whatever the difference is. And then we were able to pay all the riders. We were able to pay for for me and Demarcus to go out to New York. All of that came out of the initial sponsorship money.
That's beautiful.
Like the secondary payments and like, I would say like half of the money has yet to be raised. And at worst case scenario, Demarcus and I eat it. And it's just like, and it's the cost of doing business. And
so then where else are you going to try and raise? Like, what else is in the cards, and how much
we're trying to pick up advertising in the videos. Mid-video advertising is like how we're doing it. And we're putting
like directly YouTube ad revenue, or talking to companies and then selling the views?
No, like Fit, like if you watch Nordstrom's video, like Fit had a commercial in it.
Okay, cool.
But Fit's not a sponsor. They're not an event sponsor. They're an advertiser, you know? Right. And I guess the difference, I would say, is the sponsors were the ones who sort of trusted us before the videos even got posted and sent us money basically to get off the ground, you know, based off that deck, you know? So they are like the sponsors for the whole event.
Brought to you by, and then there's the commercials, which is smart.
Right. And then and then we have ad slots that are mid video. And, you know, initially I was hoping that we would get, I'm just being honest. Like it's just showing the struggles too. It's like,
it's good.
You would
Be
think
honest.
like, Dennis's channel had like 20,000 subscribers and like we were getting, like 10,000 views in a day, which is crazy. Like they started popping off, and like the last video, the final video with Garrett and Chad, we got 60,000 views in a day. And you're like, fuck, like this is sick. Like, this is really doing it. Like and it was like 100,000 views within a week. And you start playing with those numbers and it's like, you have a product,
money.
You know what I mean? You have a valuable product with those numbers and you can go to companies and ask for advertising. And so for us, it was like, oh, hey, like say we get 100,000 views per video. They're all posting in the holiday season. We're going to charge X amount for mid-video ads, and that's how we were going to try to raise the rest of the money, and that's how we are trying to raise the rest of the money. But, the format, the Borough Breaker, the rally format is a little less known. And so I think it just gets clicked on.
The numbers aren't as high. Yeah.
It doesn't have that built-in knowledge or that built-in awareness. And so
how did you guys like figure out, or just I imagine it's a little bit of just like a guess, but like pricing for an ad, because I personally have done this like with the podcast and I researched and I was like, okay, the industry standard is like $50 per 1,000 listens, and I'm like, that's interesting, and you have to go by that. And then when I'm thinking about 100,000, and if it's 50 per, you can charge, quick maths, 5,000. I don't know what.
Oh yeah, I mean, God, dude, we're not even. We're honestly we're asking for like 500 and $1,000 here and there, and not getting replies.
Not getting replies, dude.
And sadly, yeah, like you wish. I mean, I'll be real, like, and that's just the reality of it. Is like some people get back to you right away, and they're really receptive and excited. They want things to happen because the sport needs it. Like when I was at Haro, if people hit me up and they had their shit together and they were doing events, like we wanted to jump behind it because we were hoping they would do another year. We're hoping it would keep happening. We sponsored Gary's turkey jam, Gary Young's turkey jam at like the Santa Clara, I'm fucking up.
Why?
Claremont skate park. Yeah, the YMCA skate park, and it's like, or like, Andrew Knight was doing his Breakless TV stuff, and I'm blanking on his name. The dude from Common Crew.
Sauce?
No.
Francis. Yeah,
Francis was doing the
USL. Yeah.
USL.
Yeah.
Haro sponsored both of those. You know what I mean? Like we got on those immediately. Like that's me. Premium. We sponsored Dawn of the Streets. You know what I mean? Like we want those things to come out. We want to see more of them. Some people got back real fast, just like that. Some people don't get back at all. You know what I mean? And to be fair to those people that like kind of ghosted us or are still ghosting us, like it's not easy to say no, and it's also not easy to say we have no money, or like, and that could be the situation. I'm not saying that's the situation with them. I'm just saying a lot of times people take it personally. You don't get an email back, but the reality is like, man, they might not have the budget and they just don't want to go through the song and dance.
Yeah, but I wish I could like wave a magic wand and tell people it's okay to say no, dude. Just fucking.
Yeah, exactly. Be a big man. And I've even had like, it's so frustrating because there's times where you kind of see the immaturity in the mentality sometimes, you know what I mean? Where you're like, damn, like, like, just get back to us and just say no.
I'm a big boy. You could say no. It's fine.
Right.
Dude.
Right. Or two, it's like I've had situations where I've like asked for contact info, like I don't have a direct contact to energy drink people. You know what I mean? I might have one, but I don't have all of them. But then it's like, and it's like, these are marketing people and you're trying to get in touch with for a marketing event, and you will still have challenges. Like people will still like be reluctant to share contact info. And you're like, fuck, dude, like all I'm trying to do is email somebody to try to get support. They might not even reply, or they might reply, no, I have no money. Or fuck, they might say, you know what? Yeah, dude, let's go in for $500. Like that, it's not much, but like, let's just drop in something, to try to help you with something. But it's like, it's funny because like, there's gatekeeping in BMX, and people are like, they think that somehow, them helping you establish a connection with one of their connections is going to diminish their connection with that person.
Yeah,
And it's like, no, dude, don't be so insecure. It doesn't mean
it's a real scarcity mindset.
Right. It's a scarcity mindset, you know,
Yeah.
and to me, I have a mindset of like, you know, rising tide lifts all boats.
Exactly.
Like,
we all win. Yeah.
We're all going to come up, you know, just because I'm coming up doesn't mean you can't come up, you know, and it's like, and so
that's through all industries. That's just like a human thing. We have that in our
human
nature,
thing, dude. And
like,
people sometimes they just get self-conscious or like they get like,
it's real,
you know,
like, no, it's mine.
Exactly.
If you win, I lose. I don't want to lose.
It's disappointing when you're like, fuck, man, like you're trying to do something and we're at risk of losing money. You know what I mean? Like there's a real risk of this coming out of pocket, which, you know, Demarcus and I have come to terms with. It's like, hey, it was like, if say it ends up costing us both some money, it's like, it was still so fucking sick to get the best riders in the world together, like the best filmers. Like once we had the sponsors and that was another thing I forgot to mention is like, that was so sick. Man, like once we had the sponsors and we told the riders like, oh, we're a go, like make your travel plans. If you need an apartment, like we'll have an Airbnb, this is happening. Then it was like, we're like, well, we need to find filmers for everyone. I wasn't quite as concerned about that, but I was like, okay, now we're going to talk filmers. And then they started like, Clausen was like, I want Ennis to film mine. And I was like, dude, Ennis ain't going to film this shit. Like, he's not,
Ennis
I'm
is
like,
not
I don't even want to text him, you know? And then next thing you know, like, Ennis got back to me right away. He's like, I'm down. And then
let's go.
I texted, and then like Dan Kruk was like, I want Grant C to film mine. And I was like, fuck, dude. And I hit up Grant. Grant's like, I'm down. And I was like, oh my God, we're getting real filmers. And then it was like Justin Benthien down, like, you know, Tom Nguyen down, like all these dudes who are like big filmers. It was like, whoa, like these guys are fucking game. And then it was like, wow, this is really taking off, you know? And then it was like, and so in the end, you know, just everybody was super into it. And, you know, if it comes down to it and we're not able to raise enough sponsors to pay for the event, then it's like, we'll just know next time that we just need to try to get, you know, a bigger, or not bigger sponsor, but just try to secure more sponsorship dollars ahead of time, or try to figure out something to try to cover that gap, you know?
So where are we at right now with the releases and are we just in the midst of it?
We're right in the midst of it. We're 3 videos in. We had Brett Silva for week 1, Matt Nordstrom for week 2, and Joe Jarvis for week 3. And like we're editing them as we go. And so you're posting this on Monday. So like Tuesday will be the next one. A little sneak peek. That's going to be Matt Clausen is going to be the next video.
Ooh, and
so
filmed by Ennis.
Being filmed with Tony. I'm
That's awesome.
Literally working on it as we speak. I mean, you know, not right this second, but like
you're editing right now.
Editing it all day tomorrow, and I'll be editing it all day yesterday, and then I'll be working on it all day tomorrow and Monday to try to get it done for Tuesday. And then we're really just trying to promote them, you know, like they are getting traction each week. They're getting more and more traction, and a better response.
We got Brett. How's he doing? Let's see.
He's like 15 or 16K.
Yeah, let's go. That's not nothing.
No, it's creeping.
That's not
it's
nothing.
Good. Yeah. And so, you know, it's not
I'll read it to the people. The first event of its kind, the Borough Breaker Rally, is a rally race inspired street event where riders race through all 5 boroughs of NYC to complete a series of checkpoints. Along the way, the riders have the option of completing time crunch challenges that will drastically reduce their overall time and will help them conquer the Borough Breaker Rally. How fun, dude.
It was fun. And honestly, like, you know, it's an idea. You're never really sure how people are going to receive it. But once, you know, we did it and the riders, then that's the other thing. It's like, regardless of the financial side, like the event itself was like a massive success. Like, and like going up to it, it's like, I'll be real. Like I had a lot of sleepless nights because it's like, even though, you know, we didn't have all the money we need to break even, we still had a considerable amount of money, you know, that sponsors have entrusted with you to do something with. You
got to make it happen. Yeah.
You got to make it happen. And then you're taking all these riders' time, you know, you're taking up days in their schedule, the filmers. And like, I was stressing like rain, you know, like, is it going to rain or like,
weather, fucking
are we
things you can't control?
Like how, are the riders going to get bummed 2/3 through it and say, this is fucking lame, this, you know?
That's real.
there's every possibility because it's untested, you know what I mean? So like, we're trying to find that right balance of like, you don't want the tricks to be so easy that it's boring, but so hard that they check out, you know? And so it's like, you had to find that sweet spot. And so in terms of that, we couldn't have been happier with how everything went. Like literally we did 5 guys on one day and 5 guys on the second day, and nobody got kicked out of a single spot. Nobody had like bike maintenance issues that prevented them from finishing. Nobody got hurt in like a, you know, I mean, people crashed, but like nobody got like injured and couldn't finish. Everybody finished. At the end of the day, everybody was super happy with it all. Like they were like, man, this was fun. Like this was actually way sick. Like at first when you sent the map, like I was overwhelmed. Like Chad was like, dude, what the fuck did I get myself into here? He's like, yo, we start checking off things. I was like, this is sick. Like they just like get into it and start looking for the next thing, and they're racing and hopping in cars and all that. And so if we can, and if we can build it into something that we could just get enough support to do it again, like it would just be amazing, you know? And like, and we'd already, like, it's funny because, you know, these things, it's like, if you're the one doing it, you have no idea, like, if it's going to go well or not,
right?
If people are going to receive it or not. And so when it happened, people were posting on their stories, and like everyone was hyped, and like the first day went well, and the second day went well, and then we started catching some shit, like from some of like the not old school, but like the OGs, you know, street OGs in New York, like, yo, how did Black Man was like, how did you not involve us? And you know, Roan was had something to say about it, you know? And I was like, and to be honest, I was like, hey, like, we didn't know this was going to be cool ahead of time, you know, like
we were sparing you from embarrassment.
Or, you know, you're like, I don't even know, like, if you guys would be down with this kind of an idea. And so like, to be real, it's like, we went with riders who are more active in the content game now, you know, and they're more active in the sport now. And they might just understand like how to run with something a bit more that hasn't been done before. You know what I mean? And they kind of like, and so it's like, you're trying to find people who are reliable, who are willing to run with an idea and turn it into something. And now that it was like, once we heard from those guys, like I heard from, you know, Roan that he wanted to, like, he's like, damn, it would have been sick to be involved, or like Black Man would have been sick to be involved. I was like, damn, we can get you guys involved. If we can do this next year, like in 2 seconds, we were like, it would be sick to team up guys. Like get a young gun with like an OG, and like every dude has an OG.
That'd be so sick. You have to have a New York OG to do it with you. Yeah.
Pair up awesome. OGs with dude, like
Black Man just giving like Matt Nordstrom shit. Just like
the back and forth. Yeah. Like you have Tyrone Williams with like Matt Nordstrom, like going and riding through the city, or like Black Man with like, I don't know, Garrett, or like, you know,
the opposite of Black Man.
Felix, you know, it's like
Felix. There we go. Yeah,
it would just be such a funny dichotomy or like dynamic there, you know, that it's like,
yes, sir.
Yeah, so like there's ways to involve everyone, you know, and so like right now, the biggest challenge, like right now, it's like it's a success in the sense that we filmed it, everybody was happy. As far as I know, all the footage is awesome. Like I've gone through most of it, and it looks great. Everybody, I mean, I got everyone's footage, and you know. So far, so good. You know what I mean? So like the execution of it, I couldn't be happier with. At this point, it's like, you know, now it's just trying to figure out if there's enough demand to pay for it, and if we can do it again, you know, like,
like what does success look like? Is it's just measured in like how many eyeballs are
kind
on
of
it. That's it.
In a sense. Crazy. Like we're like, you know, it's new territory for us. Like, I mean, I'll send out sponsor emails, like, or I'll send out email to the sponsors, like letting them know a new video posted, but I'm like, hey, if you guys have ideas on how to try to like pull some more value out of this, you know, or like make it more, you know, receptive or whatever, you know, like, success looks like, can we get enough views or get enough traction with these events that it's worth it for the sponsors to do more, you know what I mean? And like, I would love, like, I don't know if you've watched Red Bull has like the Circle of Balance, I think it's called, something like that. It's a live flatland event. That shit is sick. If we could do that's kind of like Street League. Like if this could build into something where we could build our own setup or have our own setup and invite people to come view it, and then you have and then maybe you put it on live online, but like it's an actual, in real life event, like, yeah, like it would be amazing to just build this thing, build a vehicle that sponsorships become aware of and be like, oh yeah, that's a valuable thing to get behind because they do good stuff. And now you're able to just run with it and come up with ideas and get the riders and filmers and just the sport involved more, in a cool way. Like, just, that's really
So if somebody's listening to this and they want to support it, what can they do aside from just watching the YouTube videos?
Tell their friends about it, engage with it. And then, we have a Patreon that they can join that definitely helps support those events.
How's that going? How many Patreon members you got?
We have paid Patreon members, we probably have 70.
Fuck yeah.
But we have like different tiers, $5, $10, $20 tiers.
Yeah.
And great. To be honest, I think we might simplify it, if I'm being honest. Like, I've been talking with Demarcus about just doing $5 straight across the board. And then that way, because like $10 was like you get a quarterly zine, and then $20 was like you get like a monthly Patreon pack, like with like goodies. And the monthly shit is getting tough. Yeah. And that $20 spend is a lot to ask. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So then that, to be honest with you, has been putting pressure on Demarcus and myself to be like, fuck, we got to come up with something for the $20 Patreon members. And we definitely don't want to leave those dudes hanging. But then it's like, we have this Borough Breaker event that where our hands are full with.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, shit.
Like, a lot. Overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. And so then we're like, I told Demarcus, I mean, he's in Taiwan right now. So I'm waiting for him to get back to kind of like make any final decisions. But we're thinking that like, and this is the first member, so probably like Patreon members, if they're listening to us, like, hey, we're thinking about bringing everyone down to a $5 even thing. We'll still do the zines. We'll still do Patreon perks. They'll just be a little bit more spaced out. And then, but at the $5 level, it's not quite as much pressure to come through. And I think at the $5 level, then they're supporting the production of these events. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Helps fill in the gaps, like.
Are you a patron? Are you a member of anybody else's Patreon?
Just Matt and Shane's secret podcast.
Yes, dude, same. That's it.
So I gotta jump on some other ones though.
Which makes me feel like, it doesn't, I don't know. You should keep it at that level of like just $5 and you're going to get what you get. And then I don't know. I don't know how it works, but can people pay more if they wanted to? Because like you could just leave it open.
I don't think so.
Like, I think you're a big baller. You want to support us with $20? Go for it.
Right. I think you would have to build in some way to like have a tip system or something like that. Or like, I don't know how that works exactly. Yeah, if there's somebody that wants to sort of donate more,
it's it's like Matt and Shane's secret podcast makes me think about how incredible of a business model that is for them in particular. It's just like, because they record the podcast. I've thought about it for months of me being like, okay, I'm just going to do what they do. And at an hour in, I'll say, all right, let's head over to the Patreon, and then literally just cut the episode in half and put that over there and start doing that. But so the internal battle of like, who am I to do that? All that shit starts going on. I'm like, whatever.
It's tricky. Yeah. I mean, like you might have it where the Patreon is more edgy or a little bit more honest, or I don't know, or touches on more hot button topics.
Yeah. It's weird.
It's a tricky thing. I mean, like, because even for us, we were like, oh, how can we make it special? And it's just been tricky. And I mean, if we're able to get a little bit more funding or a little bit more support, then it's like we can be continually doing stuff, just have that consistency up. So like say, you had 1,000 Patreon members at $5 each. So you're bringing in $5,000 a month, in Patreon stuff. Well, then it's like, okay, yeah, then you can spend like $2,500 or $3,000 a month, like just putting things on or hosting things or paying filmers to go out and make a video. And then, maybe we host it privately for Patreon for 2 weeks or a month, and then you post it publicly. It's, that stuff. When we first spoke with Dennis about doing the game of bike, we wanted there to be much more emphasis on the Patreon situation and like having people's like pay to play kind of a thing almost, where it's like, yeah, we had this idea. And it's funny too, because like at first, like there's this huge knee jerk reaction in BMX, like, oh, pay for BMX.
Fuck you.
Totally. And
Yeah.
it's just, and it's so funny because a lot of that stuff, it just comes down to dialogue, you know, and communication, right? Because, okay, yeah, fuck you. Why should I pay for it? It's like, okay,
Yeah.
okay, well, let me pose this question. You pay for basketball, you pay for baseball, you pay for UFC, you pay for football, you pay for literally any other sport you want to be involved in. That's either paying for cable to watch it on TV or pay-per-view. I mean, let's be real. Like that's why UFC is 100% pay-per-view. The people spoke for that sport. No corporations really got behind that sport. The people paid for it, and they want to say, oh, how the fuck does Dana White pay these guys, you know, these millions of dollars to do this? And it's like, well, it's because they had pay-per-view and people paid them the money to do it.
Yeah.
Or like NBA, NHL, like they pay to go watch those games. You know, like a team will get big when their attendance numbers are big. When their attendance numbers are shit, that's, you know, you have the Detroit Lions or whatever, you know, you want to say, you know, and it's like, and so
I like that that dialogue. Exactly.
those sports, no, that's what I mean. Like those sports are only the size they are because of how much money gets pumped into those sports.
Right.
You know
And
what
the
I
money
mean?
gets pumped in because of what they are.
Because of the people watching it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like NBA, dude, NBA in itself, they only make money through game attendance and merch. That's it. That's it. That's what fuels the whole thing. But they make so much GD money off it that's how they spend all that, you know? And it's like, or like that's how they're able to pay those guys. And so it's like, yeah, if BMX had some vehicle where it was like, oh, we made $1 million from pay-per-view. Well, fuck, dude. Like
That'd be something.
you're gonna start breaking, or like that Street League. Like, oh, how did the Street League pay their guys $100,000 for winning? And it's like, well, you know,
Tickets.
like they have a ton of people coming. I mean, the business, I'm sure, is not simple. It's not a simple equation, but they were able to have people pay into that. And that's how they're able to raise the money. Like there was a lot of interest, but a lot of people were willing to put down money to see that thing grow. And it's like, if you're a BMX or you're a BMX enthusiast, but you're not willing to put money into the events that are happening, well, then what the fuck are we talking about? You know what I mean? Like then, and if you say, oh, I buy a bike part, well, it's like, yeah, but that ain't it. You know what I mean? Like the NBA, Nike sponsors NBA players, but they don't pay for the NBA to happen. You know what I mean? Like
it's all it. I think you're right. It is pretty complex, but at the end of the day, it is the simply pay a bunch of people watching and paying money. But I'm looking at your store, Low Numbers store right now. What's moving the needle for you guys, if anything?
You know, it's all moving the needle is promoting those things that are on the site. You know what I mean? Like, and if we don't promote, like right now we're doing the Borough Breaker event, so nothing is really popping off on the site. You know, and that's if I'm being honest, like the stuff on the site is stuff that we kind of came up with for our Patreon members, but then also just wanted to make it available a la carte, if you will. You know, cool. Like if you wanted to get it and not be a Patreon member, then it's like there's stuff on our site, and it's all, you know, it's all just like sort of a slow start. You know, we're getting that stuff on there. Our next thing is t-shirts, you know, but it's like at this point for Demarcus and myself, everything is out of pocket. You know what I mean? And so it's like, you know, you're paying the bills at the same time you're trying to nurture this thing to get off the ground, you know, and we'll see if it gets there or not. You know, we'll see if it has legs. In the meantime, it's fun to do these ideas and to see them come to life. And, you know, at the very least, it's like, we're proud of the stuff that we did, you know, and like proud of the Borough Breaker event that we had this idea that started in a garage, and less than 4 months later, it's like we're putting out videos of the best riders in the world, you know, with the best filmers in the world, and everyone is hyped on it, you know, and with one of the best channels. Like Billy has cultivated this amazing channel through his content, you know what I mean? And so it's like, it feels good to try to bring these elements of the sport together in an honest way to try to produce something of value from BMX that's not frames and not t-shirts. You know what I mean? which like those guys are doing a sick job. That's been done, but I don't want to keep relying on those guys to facilitate the sport. That's how we've gotten into this position. Like everyone waiting around for shit to happen. Now it's like, oh, I didn't get an X Games invite. Now my whole year is affected, you know? And like, look at skateboarding. Like, they don't give a fuck about no X Games. Like, X Games, I can take it or leave it. And guess what? Now they thrive because it's like they can kind of like play with it, and they can put their own terms out there, and X Games could take it or not. And guess that's how you have bowl competitions where no helmets. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't support that. I think that's, you know, a negative. I think that's a weird thing that skateboarding does that doesn't benefit any of their athletes. But, you know, they have set a term that we don't rock helmets in bowl competitions. And if you don't want it, it doesn't matter to us. We'll do it on our own channels, and we'll make all the money,
Right.
you know? And they go, no, that's cool. You just do no helmets. No worries. You know, and skateboarding does their own event anyways. And so it's like, they're going to, you know, it's just in addition to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like right now, you know, BMX is benefiting from the source. The source is is probably the strongest company in BMX right now, like BMX company specific. And they're the ones hosting events, you know, but it's like, it shouldn't be so dependent on those guys to do that, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, it's my brain just went into like, okay, well, let's talk about sources, business model, and all that shit. I'm like, nah.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole.
What you're doing, it's great.
But you know, what they're doing an amazing job. You know what I mean? And like, we're lucky to have them. But we shouldn't be only relying on them to do events, like their bike shop. You know what I mean? Or their mail order. You know what I mean? And they're huge mail order, but at the same time, and we're lucky again that they're doing events, but we shouldn't just be solely relying on the source.
Dude, I like that shirt, by the way. Sorry, I just
Ezreal and Hell.
Scrolled. Yeah, that's a fire design. I love that.
No, it's
all right. Well, this has been great to learn about low numbers, because honestly, I remember it starting not too long ago.
Yeah,
last year.
And I mean this year. Really, I mean, we have it as like 23 in the logo as like the official start year, but like, we did a little collab project, because that's the other thing is like, you know, we don't want to just be events. We're down to just do projects and try to just mix it up. So like the first thing we technically did was like a collab project with like Adidas 510 and you know, with Demarcus in New York.
I remember that video. Yeah.
And so that was technically in 23.
And that's when I was like, what the fuck is this? And who is this? You know?
Yeah. And like I said, it's just like it's trying to be something that's not a hard good brand and not a soft good brand, you know, but something that is solely focused on trying to, you know, create projects and collaborations in the sport. You know,
it's not a soft good, it's not a hard good, it's a medium good.
Yeah, it's an event. It's like an event project collaboration good.
Yeah,
it kind of turned into its own little production company is kind of what it's turned into. You know, which is cool. I mean, like we're down with that, you know, like, and that's the other thing is too, is like, we want it to be an open model, meaning like, oh yeah, we'll work, you know, I would like at some point to build our own channel, you know, to come up with an event that builds our own channel a bit, but also we're down to work with other outlets, any outlet that is, you know, has something to offer that is unique, you know, like we're down to collaborate with and the trying to open up channels rather than close them, you know.
It's got me like, we just talked an hour and a half about low numbers. I know, and having you on is fucking awesome, and I want to talk about your life, but I don't know if we have time to do that. We should do it.
It's all good. My life isn't quite as interesting.
Fuck you. Yeah, it is. I think you probably have something. I don't know how your memory is, but I'm pretty sure you've been around and seen a bunch of interesting stuff that we could get into. So would you do this again?
Yeah, we should. Dude, there's so much. And you know,
that's what I'm saying, dude. Look at you smiling. You're just reminiscing, smiling right now. I'm like, yes, there's gold in there. We got.
There is, dude. We can talk forever. But and there's
also. Before we go, I want to know about your life right now. Like, what are you doing for work, and what do you like? What's life like for you outside of low numbers?
Life for me outside low numbers is primarily just kind of hanging with my kids and just, you know, taking them to school and picking them up and.
That's
just
awesome.
So far, you know, like my life is kind of looser like that. And so like I've had to It's right now, my life is, is freelance, and my primary client, I would say, is that Troxis e-bike brand. And it's funny, a lot of people, God, I don't want to go into like another rabbit hole,
What
but
are you
like,
freelancing?
but like Haro, more or less, like Haro got gutted like a year and a half ago, and they fired like 80% of
Everybody,
anyone
yeah.
that made that company valuable. So like, and a lot of those guys went to this company called Troxis, which is just an
Huh.
e-bike company that is still like, it's just like a block away from Haro.
Are they interested in sponsoring podcasts? Just kidding.
Probably, dude, honestly, like,
I'd
well,
like
and
to
that's
talk
it.
about
Like,
it.
and
Yeah.
that's what's so funny is that, like, some Haro guys, they started working at Troxis, and Troxis just is another brand that's trying to get a seat at the table, just like everybody else. And they're an e-bike brand, but they're managed by good people, by good guys, and so then it's like, hey, let's try to find ways to get you guys involved. And that's why I was like, I do videos for them, and like I'll film and edit videos for them. But at the same time, I was like, hey, like, we're putting on this event. Borough Breaker's got a huge audience, and like Billy's world, it's like New York commute, like, like e-bike,
True, yeah.
bike centric. So I'm like, dude, this is not that far of a deviation, and it's probably an audience that doesn't normally get to see it. And let me tell you, dude, those Troxis e-bikes were a massive hit. Hit. Like, we weren't sure, like, because part of their sponsorship was like, hey, could we send a couple bikes out, and if filmers want to use it, then they could use it. And I was like, well,
Yes, dude.
I can't force anyone, but I'll
Yeah.
put it out there as like an option, because they could hop in cars. They ride regular BMX bikes. They could ride e-bikes. The transportation was open.
First thing I see is Tony Ennis on one of these e-bikes. Did he hop on an e-bike?
Yes. No, he was sick. He was the first person who was like,
Yes.
I'll get an e-bike. And I was like, yes,
Yeah,
Tony. Like,
my man.
dude. And so then, like, Tony used Tony used an e-bike both days. Grant C used an e-bike, and then I used an e-bike one day. It was just like, I didn't film any riders. I mean, I kind of bounced around, but I wasn't like teamed up with any riders. But everybody loved them, and like, they fully plugged in. And so like, and hopefully by the end of this, they'll get in front of a lot of eyes that they might not have otherwise gotten in front of.
This is my first time hearing about what Troxis is, and it's cool. Like,
and people, I mean, they hopped on the bikes, and they're like, these things are so sick. Like, they were loving it, and so like, I'm hoping to give Garrett and Tony one of those bikes just to have for spot searching, so
I want one just for regular life, dude.
You should, dude. I give you a deal, no problem.
Yeah, let's go.
But so that's just it.
You said you're freelancing, and I know you're a photographer, but you can do everything. What are you doing mostly?
I mean, right now it's just been, like I said, primarily Troxis has been needing video stuff, so I've been doing video stuff with them. Yeah. And then I have a corporate client who I've shot conferences for like 10 years, maybe more, 15 years. Yeah. And they hire me for like two of their bigger conferences. And then they usually like one or two of their smaller conferences they'll like send me to. And luckily I've just been able to sort of piece it together, after COVID, everybody kind of has a little bit more of a fuck it attitude. And so I was just like, you know what, I'll just run it and hopefully, fill in the gaps. And I have a little bit of savings to help bridge those slow times. But, it's
good for you.
It's been a bit more touch and go. But, at the end of the day, I kind of look at it and go, my financial uncertainty is like a small concern compared to, a lot of other crazy shit that's going on right now. So
for
I'm like,
sure,
hey, man, I'll figure it out and make sure my rent's paid. And that's kind of the name of the game. It sounds crazy that it's like that loose, but that's just kind of where it is, And
it's a good outlook, man. I like that. It's admirable. It's just like,
it is.
It's all going to be all right.
That's the thing. It's like, hey, like, if it all goes belly up and I'm not able to pay rent, I'm still going to wake up the next morning. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not at all like that at this point, but I'm like, I guess that's worst case scenario, and it's
I thought about that the other day, striking the balance between being content and kind of happy. You have to have that mindset. Like, you figure out, like, if people go nuts and they like dedicate their entire waking life to just making money, and then they get to the finish line or whatever, they make $1 million a year and they're fucking miserable. It's like, there's a balance.
That's it. It's like, if you sacrificed your personal and mental health to achieve professional success, then when you get that professional success, your life is in tatters because you've sacrificed everything for it. Then that's when you find those people that are like, I have everything and have nothing all at the same time. You know what I mean? And so like financially, my life is, is pretty touch and go, but actually, like spiritually or culturally or whatever you want to call it, like family, like I have a full life, and like it's sick, and like and like I considered myself very lucky to be able to like take my kids to school and pick them up and be around for those things and have flexibility to be like, all right, I'll bang out a bunch of work while you guys are at school, and then when you guys go to bed, I'll bang out a bunch of work.
Love it.
And I'll piece it together that way, and then we can just hang out and yeah, at the very least, like, hey, if I'm not making $1 million, well, then I'll make sure to take my own time and enjoy my days and try not to get lost in that rat race, right? And so like, and you know what, hey, if I'm at the same time, it's like that situation and that setup is giving me the freedom to kind of try to tackle this low number stuff. And to be honest, the low number stuff, hopefully in long term, it helps, get me out of this sort of financial uncertainty, but I think, man, I think you scale it up. There's always financial uncertainty. You know what I mean? Like next month is never guaranteed. If the event, say we get into doing great events or whatever, it's like, you still got to worry about weather. You still got to worry about injury. You still have to worry about, just the general everyday thing. There's
only thing that's certain is uncertainty.
Exactly. That's it. And I think when you have like those financial struggles, you think that everything just lies in that financial stability. And you're like, I don't know. Like, I think it's definitely one of those like grass is greener on the other side type of situations. And so try not to get like too locked into that trap of like feeling like I need stuff that I don't have. You know what I mean? So it's like rent's paid. I'm able to do these ideas, play with it, and have enough freedom to try to like get both things going and and be there for the fam. It's been good. So I'm not, if it doesn't reflect in the bank account, I'm not tripping out super hard over it.
Good man.
Yeah.
The last couple of days, I started a new habit where I'm writing down 3 things I'm grateful for, and just journaling in the morning. Like, I'm grateful for these 3 things, and then I set my intention. And I'd like to ask you, what are the three little things you're grateful for today, and what's your intention for the rest of the day?
Oh shit! My intention for the rest of the day. Okay. Well, 3 things. I'm obviously like my wife and kids. Like, that is number one always. I could sort of have nothing but still have everything. You know what I mean? If that side of everything is still good. And then aside from that, I am happy that I have this thing called low numbers with my friend Demarcus. You know what I mean? Like, that we're able to realize our ideas, and that's what's really cool with BMX is that if you have an idea, you can make it happen with your friends, and it's small enough that if it's something cool, then you hear about it, people see it, and that's really cool. And the third thing that I'm going to think what I want to do for the day, and that I just is to like put my phone down and just leave it. Nice. You know what I mean? And just know that like, you don't need to check it every however long to see if somebody messaged you. It's like, dude, just check it tonight. And if somebody called you this morning, you could just say, I didn't have my phone on me, and you can still get back to them. And it's not, I gotta like work on not being so attached to my phone. And actually, I just want to try to like leave it places and have it be like how it used to be. Your phone was in the kitchen, and that's where it stayed. And
exactly.
Like, so that's kind of like the third thing, I guess.
That's pretty great. Yeah. My girl's really good about leaving her phone, like, especially at night, just like going into the bedroom. She just leaves it in the living room. And I'm like, that's admirable.
Dude, like I know this podcast keeps dragging, but like having kids like really opened me up to that, like how fucked up it could be to be so addicted to your phone, and how addicted to your phone most people are. Like, you're on the subway, dude. 90% of the people are going to be buried in their phone. You even go to a school, a lot of people are buried in their phone, and it's like, damn, man, like the phone sucks, and like all that, like that, like, I mean, I know I'm trying to put videos on YouTube and stuff, but it's like just being in that like social media rat race sucks, and it doesn't doesn't really add any value to the day. And I'm like, damn, dude, I got to put this down and like start picking up like a coffee table book or pick up a magazine or like just get into the real life shit again and like not be so connected to the internet, which is like easier said than done, but it's just
that's the perfect full circle to the kind of origin story of Low Numbers and the need for doing in-person things. Like it's really inspiring. Like my brain's churning. Like we're gonna do Mediocre at Best 2 premiere, and we're gonna have a Street Fighter jam. Like Clay Johnson and Robbie host those Street Fighter jams here in Phoenix, and then that's all gonna be the same day. But now I'm thinking like we need a contest, like a Arizona contest would be fucking sick. Get all the local riders, and I don't know what it would look like, but maybe at a skate park or maybe at dirt jumps or flatland or all three, something in person, and incentivize them with a little bit of cash
like
prize
get a a $500 jam going or something, and it's like an AM jam, like so it's just the AMs, and then it's like get some opportunity for them.
I feel bad. I just missed a really cool one. There's an Instagram account called AZ BMX Scene. Alex Lochner runs it, and they hosted like a ditch contest jam. Not so much contest, but they rode 3 different ditches out there in the east side and gave out some prizes. And I was like, that's fucking cool. I missed it, but it was cool.
It is sick, and I mean, there is a good amount of that stuff going on right now. I think a lot of people are feeling the same thing in the sport. Like this need for there to be some new events, and Brett Silva just did
Darty 3,
for I think his 3rd year, and there's Swamp Fest and Dawn of the Streets, and like there's some really amazing events going on.
Actually, when you say them all like that, things are happening. We're going in the right direction. Yeah,
exactly. So I think it's just I think some of those events aren't really lucrative to a lot of riders. You know what I mean? So it might only be financially beneficial to like a small group, but just more of that stuff I think is important. More opportunities for people to get involved, AMs and pros. I think is definitely not something that's going to hurt the sport.
That's great. This is going to be not a Joey Cobbs episode. This is Low Numbers, because I'm thinking like for the questions to wrap it up, I want to ask you your Mount Rushmore, but we're going to save that for when we talk about your life and all that. Yeah. And for this episode, what's your Mount Rushmore of BMX events throughout your entire career and life?
For sure, La Rev. The La Rev contest, where Primo La Rev contests were like life-changing.
I've never seen those. Tell me about it. Let's see.
They were so good. Well, and they were just local, you know what I mean? And like at the time, they just brought every heavy hitter came. And like Dave,
what would I even look up? How do I look up Primo La LA and then REV?
Yeah, La Revolution. And they're Primo or Tip Plus. I think you would, if you looked up like Tip Plus La Rev.
Got it. Yeah, here we go. See some stuff. Dave Frymouth out there.
Yeah.
23 megas.
Those were huge for me just personally. I don't know, like if you watch those events online, if they would have like the same impact. But the La Rev contests were massive. And then I think the Texas Toast events were really, really good.
Fuck yeah, Texas Toast was great. Yeah.
And then also, one that I didn't go to that I didn't ever really have anything to do with, but they were badass. They were like the Metro Jams up in California.
Yeah, those were iconic for sure. That's 3.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Roots.
There you go.
Was a badass one. And then Swamp Fest. I mean, Swamp Fest. That event has really broken like boundaries in a sense. It's hard to explain, but like you go on the Thrasher website and they have a road trip to Swamp Fest. You know what I mean? And that shit has never happened in BMX. Where skaters are road
cool, dude. Yeah, it's special, and like it really is probably even more special than people realize what's happening with that. So
yeah, well, they'll realize when it's gone. That's exactly. The sad part. Is like,
it was so great. Yeah,
they'll look back on it and be like, that was so awesome. And the reality is too, it's like, and that's the thing. It's like those types of events only happen because like one person will champion them.
Trey.
And we know that one is Trey. You know what I mean? And so if you don't have a Trey, if you don't support Trey in what he's doing and he's not making enough money, that entire event goes away. Or like, you know what I mean? Like if I'm not saying like he's in it to make money. I don't know what his interest, you know, I know he is a BMX like diehard, and he's
But
probably
it's
in
part
it
of it,
as
dude. You
well.
have to, like, you can
Well,
only
yeah,
give
it's
so
like,
much of just charity. Like
if it becomes too much of a challenge for him, or too much, if he has to shoulder too much of it or whatever, then it's just like that one event dies with him, you know.
Yeah.
The same thing with Texas Toast, like that was like an Odyssey Sunday thing. And I think I was talking to Nuno about it. I'm not sure, but you know, they were saying how, you know, they had a challenge because they were trying to raise sponsorship, you know, trying to raise funding, and they're their own entity, you know. So it's like it was hard for them to get support maybe from other bike brands, other parts brands, because it's like, well, this is an Odyssey event, this is a Sunday event. So
Right.
you know, if I'm Kink or whatever, now I'm supporting Sunday, it's like, well, no, you're supporting this event. And like, and a lot of companies did sponsor that event, you know. But I think that was like where there was, you know, there was some conflict, or maybe conflict of interest there. But even the Texas Toast events, they did those, I think 3 or 4 times, and they were big. And then at some point, I guess, like, I don't know, it wasn't lucrative enough. Or again, it's just relying on a bike and parts brand, Odyssey Sunday, to do that event. And it takes a lot of logistical effort to do that, you know, over a long period of time. And so it's like, they probably just at one point were like, look, we got to focus on parts and bikes. You know, we can't put so much resources to an event.
We're not an event company. We're a fucking hard good company.
Exactly. And so I guess, you know, to circle it all back, I would love to see Low Numbers be able to help keep those events alive, or, you know, help prolong that kind of thing, to where we're able to, like, you know, see the strength in the sport, the things that kind of came up and got some momentum. And then it's like, keep those things going. You know what I mean? Yeah. Don't let them be a 3 or 4 year thing that dies out and then just becomes a cool memory, you know?
Yep.
So
fucking A. Good podcast, Joey. We
this
did
thing,
it.
BMX.
Low numbers one.
Hell yeah, dude. Thanks for letting me come on.
Low Numbers podcast. And yeah, absolutely have to do one where we just talk about your life and career and all the BMX history you've been a part of, because it's
it'd be cool. Like it's funny
Yeah.
now just being part of like so many like little
Eras.
chapters of the sport, you know.
For real.
It's interesting.
The era watcher. So what's the rest of your day look like? What are you doing today?
Well, I'll be hanging with the wife and kids for the mid part of the day, and then at some point I got to try to dive into this class,
do some editing. Yeah.
And get
I had a thought on that, dude. Let me say something. I feel like the format where you're releasing it each rider, like maybe once that's done, you can do you can structure it to where it feels more like a TV show telling a story, and everything's kind of simultaneous. So you get a bit of like the first borough from all riders in one episode, and then you don't know who's going to win until the fucking end. Like that, maybe next year that format I think could be fucking, I'm sure you considered it, but I think that I see popping a little bit more, because when you watch it individually, you're not getting as much of the competitive vibe. It is a solo competition type of thing, but I think that for the viewer, I want to be like, wait, who's going to win? Like in the game of bikes, like it's like, oh wait, I'm rooting for this person while I'm watching this, you know?
That is interesting. It's like, no, that's interesting, because I do think that is a more exciting way to watch if you're able to see everything kind of happen at once. The challenge with that is then, you know, you putting all your eggs in one basket of content, you know, so then you need that basket to deliver on everything. Yep. Whereas like the way we have it set up now, it's like you have 1 rider a week, 10 riders, 10 weeks. So you have 10 weeks to kind of build some momentum, which, you know, the downside is then, like each rider is kind of a little bit of in their own echo chamber, because you're
both, dude. Like what I'm saying is do what you're doing right now, but then add in at the end the fucking the show, like that
to re-edit it. Yeah, no, I think we could fully
that's
do
just
that.
A lot of work. I think about editing that and I'm like, no thanks. That's hard, dude. That's hard.
Is. I mean, I think you know, when you have all the 10 timelines chopped up, you're able to take pieces from one and bring them into another. You know, you're able to kind of combine elements, and it would be a lot of work though.
Yeah,
but I think it'd be sick. I mean, if you can. I would love that idea. I do like that idea. And we do plan on doing a video that's almost like a recap video that like, you know, sums up everything, shows who got best tricks at what spot, and kind of like, and kind of compares all the times together. And so we're definitely planning on doing that. And so maybe we'll incorporate your idea and have it be like some kind of all in one type of video. And then at the end, you can have it be like the official recaps and all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny. It's like the idea is still like evolving in a way, you know, we still don't know how it all ends up playing out. And so it's like, it's going to be
it's
exciting.
fucking awesome. I'll tell you that much. And it's very cool. And it's amazing to see just the kind of self-starter making shit happen. Like that was just an idea 5 months ago. And now it's a thing. So congrats. Good job. Fucking
Thanks.
Keep going. Low Numbers is sick. And
yeah,
that's that.
Thank you, Bobby, for letting me come on here and talk about it. I really appreciate it.
Fuck yeah, man.
Yeah.
Love you, dude. I remember meeting you fucking way back, 2009 or 8 or something.
I know. That was one of the best times, coming out to AZ with Hostleton and hanging out.
Yeah, that's it.
And that was like some
good old days. That's right. I met Billy back then too, and he came, whatever. But yeah, we can talk about that in the next episode with Joey Cobbs, and we cover your BMX existence. But for now, that is all, my friends.
I'm down.
All right.
Hell yeah, Bobby. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you.
All right.
Did you notice that I just stood up in the middle of that episode? I've got a stand-up desk now. I'm a real boy. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already and you're watching on YouTube, literally just right now, like the video. Just fucking do that. And see you next week.